Hello, welcome. Welcome to Prerona Television. We are very happy that you all are here. We are welcoming our speaker, Jiaur Rahman. He is joining with us.
Good mo- good evening to all. Uh, Edward, I'm already here.
All right. Uh, Welcome to Prerona Television. We are very happy that today we will be having a leadership training session, leadership and self-development challenges. And our speaker, Jiaur Rahman, he is with us. So those who are joining, we are very happy that you are with us. So I will now ask Jiaur Rahman to introduce yourself first and then continue with the training session. Thank you.
Thank you, Edward. Assalamu alaikum. I am Zia Rahman. I'm also an advocate. We have been doing this training session for the last 1 week, and this is our second session. Last week we did something on leadership challenges as well, but in a slightly different angle. So let me just introduce myself. I am with Independent University as a faculty, adjunct faculty, and I run my own training and consulting firm, IITM. So today we are focusing on very simple topic, but at the same time, very, very important topic in our lives, which is leadership challenges and uh, leadership and self-development challenges. I'm sorry, leadership and self-development challenges. So coming forward from last week, those of you who couldn't join, we discussed in detail on leadership issues. So today we are going to discuss leadership from a slightly different angle and how leadership is challenged through our own structure, our own behavior, our own system of looking at things from a different angle. So we are going to be breaking the session into a 40-minute session first, and then we are going to look into taking some questions, and we'll wrap it up after a 5-minute session at the end by giving my final comments. And Edward Probiamondo will also chip in at that point. And if any of you would like to make some comments or queries, you may do so. And I will be here to answer, and so will Edward be here as well. So thank you very much. Let me just start my presentation. I'm going to start with the screen share, and let me find my presentation first. Okay, it's coming up right now. Edward, can you see the presentation? I think everyone can see the presentation, hopefully. So the two words again to, to the presentation. The first one is leadership, and the other one is self-development challenges. So these are the two words that actually defines the entire course for presentation for today. So moving forward, just a little information on me. So moving forward, very simply, we had discussed leadership in the last presentation just a week back. So I'm not going to go detail on that, but what I'm just going to suggest is in a very small but very impactful way, what is leadership to us? Leadership can mean different things to different people. But when we are looking at leadership right now, we're looking at from a organizational leadership point of view or personal leadership point of view. For this particular session, we're looking at leadership from a personal point of view. So someone having the capacity to lead is basically a leader. So the important word that we have to focus on is the capacity here and to lead. So someone who can lead must have a certain level of capacity, and that capacity we can grow in some cases, and some may argue that it is an ingrained capacity. So moving into the leadership realm becomes a difficult challenge at times for certain people, given the context. However, for some people, it is a very easy transitional process through which they actually move from reasonable level of leadership to extraordinary level of leadership. So the capacity is what we are going to drive today. Why? If you have the capacity that you have brought into yourself, then you can actually slowly step into a more comfortable senior level leadership position. So, and by doing so, your challenges as a human being is reduced. So more capacity, more leadership growth, and less challenges that you will face in life. Obviously you're going to face a lot of challenges over time, that's for sure. But if you have the capacity growth for taking on additional uh, challenges, then you will slowly become a more evolved leader. So these are connected words, and therefore the emphasis on the word capacity. So now moving forward, leadership culture. We did this slightly last class, and so I just want to touch on it. So some of you may be coming back into the session, so this might be sound like a repeat to you, but please hang in there because I will introduce it from a slightly different angle in context of today's session. So planning is the most important part of developing your leadership culture. We use the word culture, so we are talking about the planning of the cultural aspect of any leadership. Imagine yourself moving into an organization from another organization. The previous organization may have run slightly differently from the one that you have stepped into. So the previous organization may have done things in a different way, whereas you come to this new environment and you realize that a lot of things are different. For instance, the previous organization there were only maybe one monthly meeting, and here they're defocusing on the one monthly meeting, but they're focusing on, let's say, a stand-up meeting on a daily basis. That could be a transition in terms of the culture. So if you are considering to grow your leadership culture in around the environment, then you have to adjust to those environments. Then comes the word executing, adjusting and getting onboarding on different things is actually the execution part. So without the execution, the planning is really not going to deliver any results. So planning and executing, then empathy. Empathy is the emotional quotient part. If a leader is not considerate, if a leader does not understand his or her team well, from a psychological point of view as well, then he or she will not be able to properly lead. That's for sure. So empathy is feeling the pulse of others and then responding to it accordingly. So a leader will also have to have a blend of empathy within his leadership style and the culture that he is working with. And then a leader will have the vision. So we talked about it in slightly more detail. So I don't want to go back and touch on those, but I would like to proceed forward. So these four components is your leading part. The person with leading capacity we already talked about becomes a leader. So it's a person with leading capacity can be equated to leadership, and an effective leadership, effective communicator turns into an effective leader. So you have to have communication skills, which we covered in last session. So moving forward, we can understand that the culture has to be designed according to the environment in which you are present with. If your previous environment and your current environment may not be the same, so as a leader you have to adjust to the leadership culture. That's very important point that we have to take home. Any environment you are stepping into, you must look at the environment itself, the ambience, the people around, the people culture within that environment, and adjust accordingly. It does not mean that you are not going to change the leadership style or the culture within an environment if you are the leader of that house, but you have to take that slow measure of looking at their environment and then adjusting. You can't all of a sudden jump in and say whatever we used to do from the last 5, 10 years, we are going to throw it out the window. And here I am, the most charismatic leader, and I'm going to change everything. These type of planning will probably not work well, and it will backfire on your face. So this is very important component of understanding your leadership culture and surviving in that environment. So moving forward, I'd like to point out on the part of the communication which goes into leadership, which we also did a little bit, but I will just focus on the uh, aspect of evoking the understanding in building forward your communication and in driving the leadership forward. So this is very important. Without communication, you can't move forward. So what is communication in one very short term? Communication is sending information and somebody receiving the information, and your intended uh, perspective of how you want the communication to be understood. That person responds and understands it in the same way. If that takes place, then you can say that that is proper communication. Then sender and receivers have to sync, which I just mentioned is the same term in a slightly different terminology, meaning that what you're packaging as information, the other person has to be on the same level, same capacity. Imagine yourself in a let's say a mathematics class, and you have your students. You are the smart teacher, you understand the mathematics model very well, but unless you can convey the message at the level of your student, it becomes very difficult for those students to actually pick up and understand and move forward. So this is very important communication, and the communication is vital because you want to grow, and your challenges as self-development challenges, communication will be a very important part. We'll look into it later. Um, this was from the last session, and I just want to uh, focus on whether its leadership is born or cultivated. We discussed this in detail last class, but I just wanted to bring it out to you. Is leadership born or cultivated? So if you look at the leadership definition, uh, it's basically there's no magic definition, but we have to have some inherent characteristic traits in person's early life. If you see some traits of leadership in the sense that people taking charge in their early life on certain matters, then you can say that some of it is born through you, and you develop it further. So it's partly process and partly intuitive. If it's built into your system, it will sort of show, and you can actually evolve. Both are correct. So I would not say that it's just uh, purely purely a trait that is embedded in your DNA in the earlier at the time of your birth. I would not say that, but it's also partly true that some people will have higher level of leadership even from the get-go, even from his or her birth. And the other one is if you are around the right set of people, if you carry on tasks which need more involved and people participation. So, and if you are really managing people all around your life, then over the years, over the months, you will develop your leadership skills. Strong-willed mindset is very important, and that is also groomed over the years. So it does not happen one fine morning. This is from the last uh, class. Among this was also from the last class. So can I be a leader? What needs to be done to be a leader? What guarantees are there? Actually, there are no guarantees, but you can also only work hard and drive towards your leadership goals. So that's how you actually evolve yourself. So now let me move to the other session, uh, slightly forward. Uh, moving forward. Sorry, I have to just give me a few seconds. I don't. Okay, let me. We talked about this slide or on the last slide, so we will start from here. Slide presentation. Where am I? Okay, culture and leadership are two synonymous words which defines each other. If you have a good culture, leadership will thrive. And if you have a good leadership environment, the culture will automatically flow in. So these are two words which actually drives towards excellence and your own personal journey and personal development. So what is culture? From Webster's Dictionary, it says the set of shared attitude, values, goals, and practices that characterizes an institution or organization. So it's a set of shared attitude. That means uh, collectively certain perspectives and attitudes, behaviors within an organization is worked upon, is seen, noticed, and the values within that organization. Maybe some organization focus on having very strong focus on value propositioning. In other words, they want their products to be very designed in such a way that the value is optimized without having additional expenses. So optimal values could be included in a maybe some companies might be focused on more extensive value proposition, therefore the pricing model for their products might be higher than the previous organization that we just talked about. Then the issue of goals. Certain organizations do not have very clear set goals, but when you talk to the people within the organization, they talk about the future, they talk about uh, survival, they talk about their previous history, all connected to goals, but they don't have the real set goals. I don't want to go into that discussion whether having absolute set goals or having less tangible goals, which one is the right strategy. We don't want to go into that. But what I'm trying to drive at is that different organizations will have their goal setting done differently. Some of it might be very structured and articulated, and in some cases it may not be as articulated. However, those companies might also be doing reasonably well. And at the same time, culture is practices are definitely component of culture in that sense that a leader a leader is focusing on issues which another organization, a similar position leader, would be looking at in a slightly different way. So that is the part of the practices. Our practice, our practice, and their practice, or your practice versus his or her practice might be different. So this is because of the culture and the orientation in life that you actually grew up with. So these are embedded in your culture. So let me read it one more time. The set of shared attitude, values, goals, and practices that characterizes an institution or an organization and also an individual as well is part of the culture. Mm, if you look at the history of uh, large organizations, for instance, IBM in the earlier years, they were very matter of factly. That means they would have very set meetings, very organized meetings, very white collar type of environment, and they would they would grow within those type of environments. At the same time, if you go into another organization, say Facebook or Google, the environment is a lot different. It's more friendly. Of course, they're very much driven, just like the organization IBM, but their approach is different. So we don't want to say which environment is better versus which one is not so good. But what I'm trying to drive at is the fact that every organization and every individual comes from a different culture and different value system, and holds certain attitudes which are unique to that person. You cannot compare that you have a master degree from certain university, you have worked for 5 years in particular environment. Why are you thinking in a slightly different way than the other people who are sitting in our office of same age and same background? They're thinking in a different way because the culture is also connected with your own perspective and intuition and your values. That is why. So you have, as a leader, you have to understand that culture plays a vital role in success. You can't push your views and perspective onto your team all the time. You can discuss about your vision, you can discuss your style of doing your activities, and you want them to get some ideas from the way you move forward. You can do a pitch talk when you join, let's say, an organization as the head of certain department, or let's say the entire organization. The previous leader would have done things slightly differently. Those you can discuss, but you cannot just expect that whatever was done previously will be wiped out or put under the rug one fine morning that you joined. That will not happen. It's a transition that may take place, and in some cases, the transition may not even ever take place, because if people start to resent you, if if you are pushing yourself too hard on the team members, then in spite of having good attitude, you may not be perceived as a good leader who is trying to drive the team forward. You may be all of a sudden considered as a leader having reasonable qualities, but you don't understand the culture of this organization, and therefore, as a team member, we start to doubt you. We start to doubt you, and then it becomes a herd mentality. Everyone starts to doubt you, and all of a sudden, you're the fish out of the water without even knowing. So you must, as a leader, take on the responsibility of transitioning or changing the culture as you go forward. So this is the stepping stone for becoming a good leader. So moving forward, let me move to the next one. Leadership culture. This is also from the Webster's Dictionary. It says leadership culture is the way things are done, the way people interact, make decisions, and influence others, whether it's conscious or unconscious actions. So it's a lot of words packed together. Let me break it down in a more meaningful way. So we talked about culture. Now we are adding the word leadership, and we define leadership uh, as the capacity to engage and grow. So leadership culture is also, in a way, the capacity to get things done. So the way things are done and the way people interact, how you get things done is through the people's interaction. If people do not interact between themselves in a friendly and professional disposition, many things will not be done. Many discussions will take place, but after the discussion, action part will not take place. So in other words, your output will come out to be very low or nearing zero. So the culture has to be designed in such a way that the people can actually interact with themselves in a meaningful and engaging and wholesome way, and then take the decisions to create the next opportunity for the organization. So the culture is actually flowing from looking at things the way it is, allowing people to interact with themselves, creating a harmonious environment so that decisions are flowed. And how the decisions are flowed, obviously through creating spheres of influence amongst the people who are in the meeting, or discussing on the new, let's say, a particular product that they want to work upon. So this takes place consciously. You can drive the culture consciously by talking about certain things, talking about certain values on a regular basis to your team. And that way, over the months, over the years, a particular mindset will evolve, and that mindset will be rolled out within your organization, within your factories, within every department within your organization. That is your conscious approach to building the leadership structure or leadership culture. At the same time, without telling people that this is how we need to do things, if you start doing things in the way you want people to respond to, that is the unconscious actions. For instance, if you're talking about being on time uh, every day at work and delivering the right results, you might start the meeting exactly on time. You set meeting dates and times, and you don't come on time. You're coming every day 10, 15 minutes later, and saying, sorry, I was busy. Sorry, I had to attend to something else. But here I am, let's start the meeting. And then if you push on the uh, button by saying that we have to be extremely deep time bound and everything has to be starting on time, and then next week you do the same thing and you again push on the idea of being on time and getting things delivered on time, this will not work perhaps. So unconsciously, if you want certain, if certain things are to roll out within your organization, maybe unconsciously, maybe unconsciously, maybe unconsciously, you can develop yourself into such a person that people will respond, follow, and move ahead. So that is the conscious and unconscious actions that drives the leadership culture. And please note that leadership culture is necessary in order for you as a person to grow as an individual. So since we are going to be talking about self-development challenges, we also need to understand the leadership culture, and that the culture aspect is directly connected to you and your environment. All right, so moving forward, what could be some examples, let's say, of leadership cultures? We just talked about leadership culture. Now let's move to some examples. For instance, setting standards is part of the culture. Everyone in the organization tries to benchmark a particular standard and responds to that standard to the best of his or her ability. That could be part of a culture. So that deals with the leadership culture within the organization. Being objective, you have very specific meeting, your agendas are clear, you don't deal with additional issues, you are mostly objective in your decision making. Then as a leader, if you continue on this type of structure, then others around you will eventually realize that being objective is perhaps the right way for me to move forward within this organization. So that's the second example. Then open doors policy. If you're a leader and you believe that through leadership, through open doors policy, you can evolve your leadership. Open doors policy, meaning you allow your juniors and your colleagues to come forward, have a small discussion on a particular issue and move forward. Some leaders are open to taking ideas or even valuing valuing more other people's perspective and then allowing the leadership to grow. This is a way of managing the leadership in a slightly different way. In some cultures, leadership may not be as open doors policy. Again, I don't want to make a value judgment on this, but given the environment and given the organization, the open doors policy in some organizations may work, but in some organizations it may not work. For example, if you're in a military organization, you don't, you will not probably allow open doors policy on a decision on every matter. You might just say that there will be no discussion. There will be only execution on this particular issue. For instance, going into a war, you may not be having a democratic discussion and decide to go into a war with someone. You will have to make a general's decision as the leader. So just this may not be the right, exactly the right example, but I hope you understand what I'm trying to drive at. So work habit, it's part of the culture as well. I know organizations, for instance, I am currently in Bangladesh. I know a few organizations which start at 10 o'clock in the morning and 11 o'clock in the morning, and they go till, let's say, 6:30, 7:30 at at work, and then they finish their work at 7:30. Their culture is different. They are laid back culture. They go to sleep late, so they wake up late and they come to office late, and they have made it a policy within their work practice. So that's work habit, part of work habit. Time management is part of work habit. Some organizations have teams which deliver results under extreme pressure. Some organizations are operating with planned, scheduled meetings, and as they go along, they evolve and then eventually produce a particular result. It becomes easier on that organization to get things done. Whereas in the previous organization, they did the same result, but in the first few days, they were less involved in that particular agenda, a work area. But they were pushed very hard towards the end and got the results as the the latter organization. It's the habit that each organization brings into the table, and that forms the culture, leadership culture. Stress management. Some organizations are just simply better because their team leaders and the managers have more capacity to manage stress because they perhaps maybe having trainings and internal discussions on how to manage stress. Whereas in some organizations, they handle things, but they it sometimes it's a high octane discussion. In other words, a lot of stressful discussion takes place, and the decision ultimately is carried out. I might say with I will say with confidence that managing stress is much better than having highly charged discussions in a particular environment. It may not be very good on your personal health and hygiene and organizational and culture design. So stress management would be a very important part of designing the leadership culture. Regimentation and non-run regimentation, which is connected to work habits. So if you're more structured as a leader, your team members will be more structured. For instance, you're a leader, you come in with certain documentation on a regular basis, you open your file, you move to from agenda to agenda, then eventually, if your team members are running a particular meeting, they will also do the same. And it will become a culture within the organization. So if you're more regimented, you will eventually notice that others are following suit. If you are less regimented, then people may not be following the particular style that you have been trying to use or roll out within your organization. Here, I would like to mention that the organizations which are very process driven, regimentation culture is perhaps more effective. Whereas organizations which are very creative and they have to have a lot of creative engagement, they can be less regimented. So depending on the organization and depending on the creative aspect or the design aspect of an organization, this regimentation versus non-regimentation would be decided. Process and goal orientation. For instance, some organizations decide on revising their goal on a very regular basis, whereas some organizations do not want to change their goals so abruptly. They feel that they would rather have 1 or 2 day very extensive sessions where they would set their goals for the entire year and work accordingly. Whereas maybe another organization, they might say, they might think that future is uncertain. So we cannot really create a very structured goal for the organization beyond a certain period. Therefore, they will adjust their goal on a particular timeline. So it again is part of the culture in which you're working. So these are the examples of leadership culture that a person has to deal with. And if you want to be a leader, there could be other points as well, but if you truly want to be a leader, you have to put a little bit of attention to each one of these. And the challenge for a leader is to understand when to use which type and which style. Even sometimes open doors policies may not be the right approach. So as a leader, you may want to adjust yourself and plan according to the situation and the circumstances. So a leadership culture is basically a set of perhaps values and norms that you as a leader and people within your organization would like to bring forth within the organization to run it's their business, their operations. So it takes place over the years, and it can't be one. It can't be like one book of knowledge that you bring into your organization, and one fine day you said that this is the new book of knowledge, and everybody within the organization, you need to start following according to this new book of knowledge, and I am calling it the cultural book of this organization. It will not work. It will backfire. So you have to understand that this culture takes place over the time, over a particular period. So you as a leader, you must accommodate those perspective and views in designing the future state of your organization. And these are your personal challenges as a leader as well. So moving forward, what is self-development? Very important part in everybody's life. We talk about self-development on a daily basis. Everywhere you go, people will talk about what is your self-development journey and what have you been doing in the last few months or few years in that particular area. So you will have to answer to yourself first that what is self-development for you. Your self-development and my self-development might be slightly different depending on the environment. You might be in a highly charged environment where you deal with a lot of people, whereas I might be working in an environment where I'm doing research work. There are not many people, but my work is very important. So my self-development journey and challenge would be slightly different than yours. So self-development in a word is, in a sentence, it is improving oneself in all matters, whether it is professional or whether it's personal. So improving oneself in all matters is self-development. However, as a leader, you have to realize time is of value. Time is of matter here. You can't go into every single aspect of self-development. Their knowledge is too vast and too wide. So you have to pick a few areas in which you want to gather particular knowledge. Why? In order to adjust to a particular culture, in order to adjust to your own environment in which you're working and delivering a particular set of results for the organization. And maybe if your position demands new things to be rolled in within your organization through your position, then obviously in your self-development journey, you have to try to
learn new things on a regular basis. That will be part of survival for you as a leader in that organization. And if you want to consider your life in two baskets, which we all do, personal life, you want certain things that you want to learn and that you work towards. The same things you may not be considering right into your professional world. In professional world, maybe you're slightly weak in, let's say, a particular language that you want to pick up because you as a professional are assigned by your organization to travel to that particular country, and you feel that if I can learn that particular language, then maybe it will add more value to my operations and my engagement and my managerial skills in that country, which is very practical. So you might say that, okay, I'm going to go to Spain. I go to Spain regularly, so I want to learn Spanish up to a reasonably proficient level. So that could be your self-development journey. Somebody might say that I deal with a lot of people as I am a salesperson. So I want to take a lot of professional course in sales, sales planning, sales force management, etc. So each one of us has to decide on the journey in our life and what type of development techniques we want to bring into our learning process to evolve our own self. So both parts, professional and personal, we have to develop ourselves on a regular basis. And remember, a leader has to be open to new ideas. So new ideas in some ways is new development challenges, new knowledge challenge. The next point is it's a journey. I cannot say that I have learned it all. I don't need any further input. I know it all. If you start thinking in those terms, then ultimately you will fail. You're setting yourself for failure. Why? Because the entire world is changing. Certain things are absolutely structured. For instance, those will never change. 2 plus 2 will never change to 6. It will always be 4. But decision making process, particular methodology in getting things done, certain design aspects of certain product or service, it could be designed differently and based on the technology tools that you have, things are evolving. 50 years earlier, previously, a meeting would require a lot of pen and paper. Now, imagine we are dealing with you on a cross-Atlantic meeting or a presentation without pen and paper. Of course, you might have pen and paper in front of you, but I'm not writing anywhere, at least for this session. I'm just using technology, PowerPoint. So if I didn't learn PowerPoint well, then these type of, for instance, trainings would have been difficult for us to handle. So leadership and self-development are nothing but journeys. So we have to step on to that mindset that we have achieved certain level of understanding on a particular topic. Let's say on the 9th of July or 8th of July 2020. But maybe 5 years down the road, some of the learnings that you have had now may be lost, but you will gain certain other learning which will take you forward to the next level. So self-development is basically a learning process through which at different uh, age level and different journeys in your work environment, you learn certain things. A professional, when they start, they become subject matter experts first, while they also develop their people skills to become managers. But when they grow older, let's say they have turned 35, 40, 45, they can be subject matter experts, but more importantly, they have to bring in leadership skills within themselves because by this time maybe they are dealing with 50 people, 100 people, or even bigger organization, and they're giving them guidance on how things have to be done. So at that point, that person has transitioned from being a subject matter expert to being a person with additional skills. And what is that additional skills? Managing people skills. So that's very important. The third point is planned efforts brings success. This is undoubtedly a true statement, regardless of any culture, any country, any environment. If you are planning your self-development journeys, then success will automatically come through your door, because planning, in other words, is trying to vision forward, right? The type of results that you want, and then planning is like doing the work backwards and getting the things done so that the ultimate outcome is achieved. So you can actually taste the future if you plan well, in other words. And if you, I could very easily say, if you can almost taste the future, then the success will be easier to come. Success will come easily to you. So this is very important, that you plan ahead properly to bring success. But you might say that there are times when it becomes very difficult to plan. I understand that also, because life, you cannot plan everything. That's not possible. You don't plan for a, let's say, disaster that you never realize. You don't wake up every morning and plan that if you are coming to work and you're riding your car or your motorcycle or in riding in a bus, you will face a accident. You don't plan for it. You think about it, maybe, that if there's an accident, you want to keep your business card, you want your mobile number to have certain numbers which is easily visible so people can call, things of that nature. Maybe you want your ID card with you, those things, but you don't plan for it every day. You have to, you you have to let certain part of the planning go unplanned, such as this example. But in most cases, if you want to succeed, and your journey for becoming a better for a human being in the areas of professional or personal self, it's more of a planned effort. If you want to be a great orator, for instance, then you have to plan, and you have to practice, and you have to listen to a lot of videos, you have to read a lot, and then ultimately at one given day, you can call yourself a successful orator through a long process. So this success doesn't happen overnight. For some people, it may happen, but those numbers are maybe 1 or 2%, and that cannot be the example. Uh, you have to realize that to bring success, 80, 90, 95% people put in a lot of work, they slave thousands of hours, and then they deliver the results. So this is very important. Self-development journey is can be in the professional and personal sphere. It is a journey. We cannot say that we have learned it all. So every time you learn something, you want to find another way to do the same thing or learn something different. And at the back of your mind, you have to plan it in order to get that self-development success. Okay. Now moving forward, what are the challenges? Basically, the topic for today is leadership development and self-development challenges. So this is the important point on how to overcome the challenges. Challenges we will have. Challenges, as as the English word statement goes, challenges creates opportunities. If you're never challenged, new opportunities do not evolve. So as a professional, if you take it from that mindset that I want to be challenged daily, and if I am challenged daily, I will find new ways of doing the same thing in a different day, in a different way. This does not happen daily, but on many aspects, if you're challenged, then you sit together, you plan, and you find alternative ways to get things done. So those challenges actually allows you to grow as a human being. You become more, you grow more strength within yourself as to get things done from multiple perspectives. So that challenge is a positive challenge that you turn into a positive outcome for yourself. So, mm, what could be some challenges which actually slow us down, hurt the organization, destroys the organizational culture, or impacts the organizational culture in a negative way? One of the important part is ego versus shyness. So let me just talk about ego and then try to connect it with the the other negative, which is shyness. Ego is something where we say that I am I understand all of this. I will decide, and it is my vision that will drive the organization forward. This is how I think things, and you guys need to follow through, rank and file of what I'm thinking. That could be a challenge. We call it ego. You have too strong of a personality that you do not allow others to seep in, others to give in their perspective. Every time others are trying to come in and give their viewpoint, you come around and say that, look, I have gone through this process, I understand this better, I know it all, and you need to follow me. In some areas, you might come and emphasize because maybe it's a very technical area and you have actually gone through that technical challenge before. For that kind of environment, yes, you might come and say that, listen to the way I am doing because I have gone there, I've been there, I've learned that. That's okay. But in other areas where there are a lot of people dynamics involved, there has to be a lot of discussion. And based on that discussion, an optimum solution should come forward. In those environment, if you say that it's my way or the highway, then ultimately your organization will not prosper. And you, as a professional, you as an organization, will have severe challenges. So those are the self-development challenges for you and the organization as well. If you consider the organization as the self also, then the ego within the top leadership may not be the right set of ingredients that can drive the organization forward. The other point that I want to point out is shyness. There are people in this world who are rather smart, but they never come forward and voice out certain points. Maybe they have a very good uh, viewpoint on a particular issue. Maybe manager is asking on how to do things in a slightly different way, and you have actually gone through the process in a different way and you have seen that there are certain results that has taken place which are positive, but you don't feel, you are shy, you are quiet, you don't speak up. So that itself is a challenge. So some people might be a little introverted. We know that the world has different types of people. Some people will be extrovert, going out and saying that, hey, let me raise your hand, and you say, let me answer the question. I know it. I know it. So those are the extrovert kind of people. And if you give something to these people, they would try to lead and try to get things done. Whereas the other person might be more intuitive, a little bit introvert, not coming out and speaking out loudly in front of people, but they will get the things done in a different way without uh, being vocal. So that is shyness. I'm not saying that shyness is always bad, but sometimes the shyness can be a challenge for your growth. So ego versus shyness, if you're to consider which one is which of these two negatives, if you have, then which one? But what I'm trying to say is that whether it's if somebody has ego versus somebody has shyness, which person is better to move with? Again, it depends on the leadership and the cultural environment, but person to person, it may vary. For example, for me, I would rather work with someone who is a little bit shy because I can tap into that person because I'm reasonable vocal. So I can discuss a lot of points. I can try to unearth a lot of interesting and intuitive views that that person has by having a discussion with that person. So I would rather have someone who is shy working with me. Somebody else might saying that no, I want somebody who who exudes a lot of confidence. But what I'm saying that a shy person, he does not have confidence. I'm not saying that, but trying to suggest that sometimes shy persons do not have confidence. So somebody might say that I want to work with someone who is always saying that I did this, I am the master of this environment, give it to me, I will deliver. You might want to find space and work with these people. It all depends on your style. But these are the two challenges that you must understand can actually slow you and your organization down. Then comes resource constraints. For example, you might be very interested in learning the computers and understanding the web and internet very well, but you really don't have a good computer, or let's say you don't have a computer at this point. So resource constraint is hurting your development. So that could be a bummer, but these resources must be available to you for your self-development journeys and improvement. So you have to understand uh, that you design your future based on the type of resources you have. It's no use crying over spilled milk. Why? Because maybe you don't have that resources. So you can't get to that type of environment right away. So if you're frustrated that why don't I have that type of environment, it is only going to hurt you. So I would suggest as a as as a professional that you need to work alongside the resources that you have. The third point is not knowing the challenges and areas of challenges. This is a very important point. Some people don't even know that they have challenges. Some people don't even understand that moving forward, they need to change their particular traits. Those traits are not going to deliver the right set of leadership. They don't even know that. So that is very important. Understanding that you have areas of negative points that you need to work upon, that you need to really develop yourself so that you move away from those uh, dark spots, or these, you can call it a pit hole. All right, so that's important. And you have to also understand certain challenges are easier to handle. Certain problems, in other words, are easier to handle. You should try to address those problems first so that you become a little bit more effective. And then you go and address the deeper challenges. For example, let me just give you an academic example. You want to learn calculus. So before learning calculus, you need to know your basic maths. You can't jump into calculus right away. So connecting it back to your own life, certain problems are deep within you. These deeper problems you can address as you become more proficient in other areas, and then you move and try to address the deeper problems. What I'm trying to say is that you don't sweep the deeper problems under the carpet. I'm not saying that. You have to be cognizant about your deeper problems, and you have to be very careful as to slowly address those deeper problems. That's for sure. But you may have certain problems which are easy to fix. try to fix those problems first. That way you are moving beyond challenges. Then comes procrastination. In English, there is a proverb. It says, procrastination is the thief of time. Procrastination. So what is procrastination? Procrastination is nothing but thinking about things but not doing things. We suffer from it all the time. Maybe you have a big project that you have to finish in the next 3 weeks, but you might start thinking that, oh, I have 3 weeks. Let me relax a few days, and I will definitely start the work about next Tuesday. So you're actually spending 7 days not thinking about it too much. So that pushes you to work harder towards the end deadline. So you are stressing yourself. You may not come up with the best result. You may even fail. So procrastination is one of the most uh, worrisome and difficult self-development challenges in one's life. So if you have that type of challenge within your own self, I know I have that on myself. So I try to constantly think, how can I away from being move away from having that challenge. So I try to make things happen by taking those difficult areas which I was previously sweeping under the floors, thinking that maybe I'll look into that later. And ultimately, I had failed previously. So over the years, I've decided that procrastination word, I have it within me, but I'll try to address it as we go along. So this might be the case with many of you. So that's why I consider this as a very, very difficult challenge. And I would emphasize that you start thinking in those terms where you might say that from today onward, I will try to get things done on time by starting things on time. The other challenge is inability to move out of comfort zone. Many of us, you have noticed all your life that people say that, "No, don't worry, I know how to handle this. I know it very well. Please don't give me new ideas, then I'll mess up. Let me do it my way." I'm sure you have seen that many times in your life. That is known as comfort zone. Sometimes comfort zone is okay, but sometimes comfort zone is not okay. Every person needs to evolve. You have done certain things in a certain way. Maybe there are other ways of doing this thing more efficiently. So if you're sitting in your comfort zone on a regular basis, then you are not really truly moving ahead with more productive, efficient tools. So this is a challenge that we have. Then the last point is personal capacity itself is a challenge. If I'm not Albert Einstein, I will never be able to come up with the theory of relativity. So you as a professional, you as a leader, you also have to understand you might have particular capacity challenge. You can't go beyond this type of reasoning. So you have to make your reasoning up to that level. If you're making a very complex reasoning, in that case, you need to bring others' input into your reasoning process. Going back to the idea of ego, if you hold your ego hard and say that I am the leader of this house, I will not take anybody's viewpoint, I will address the entire challenge myself, and I will ultimately be successful. There could be points where you might fail miserably. So, my point to you all is, would you like to take on that risky journey? I am sure that's not the smartest way to move about. I would not. So I would suggest you should not either. So personal capacity is a very important tool and ingredient in everybody's life. As a personal, professional person, you have to understand everyone comes with a particular capacity at a particular given time. You as a leader, you have to work with your team to evolve their personal capacity up to his or her optimum level, and you also have to grow your personal capacity so that as an entire team, everybody moves ahead. A rising tide raises all. So if you're focused on raising your knowledge, your skills, the entire organization will actually be lifted. So that's the challenge we have to really try to understand and move about. So I've actually put together these 6 challenges. There are many other challenges, but if you think deeply, any other challenge, you can actually put them into one of these 6 baskets. So instead of making a larger list, I just put them in 6 baskets, and you can throw every challenge in the world into one of these baskets. If you think about knowledge, it can go into personal capacity. If you can think of oratory skills and all of that, it can go into resource constraints. If you can think of monetary issues, it can go into resource constraints. If you think of leadership challenge within your organization, people are not responding to change and developing themselves, it can go into either procrastination, it can go into inability to move out of comfort zone. The other challenge is that I don't even know what needs to be done. It can go into the inability to move out of comfort zone, and the other one is not knowing the challenges and areas of change. So I must suggest that every day you take 5 minutes of your time, either in the morning or at night, think about some of the challenges that you had faced with in your particular day, or some of the challenges you may face tomorrow, and you sort of have a mental model of how to overcome those challenges. Or if you had already faced that challenge, what what changes that you would like to bring in into your leadership so that next time you are facing that particular challenge, you can easily overcome. So I would suggest take 5 minutes of your time, think about these, think about your challenging area, think about your own weakness areas, and then think about the opportunities that you can transform those weaknesses through your own strengths. So that way you will slowly evolve as a professional self. All right, moving forward. I'm about to close my presentation. So I again want to coin this as a $1 million question: how to apply these points in life. I just pointed out in the previous slide, I just pointed out in the previous slide where we said that if you spend 5 minutes of your time daily and contemplate on the difficulties that you have and how to move beyond your difficulties, that itself answers part of that $1 million question. So how to apply these points in life? Number one application is believing believing the fact that I can improve tomorrow. That's one part. That will open your possibilities of taking in new knowledge and new skills and new understanding. The other point I would say is engage in discussion. If you are engaging in discussion with a lot of people, then new ideas and new points actually come in. That can actually facilitate your decision making to the next level. The third point that I would say is you can honestly go into a lot of online tools, uh, for instance, tools which are in the SlideShare PowerPoint. In a nutshell, there are a lot of good slides. You can read on those. You can read great articles, and then you can respond to those articles and bring those ideas into your life. So there is no one particular way. Each person has to evolve his or own particular culture. There's no one particular way. But I bring this $1 million question to you. Think about this $1 million question on a daily basis, and then spend 5 minutes of your time to think about the challenges that you want to overcome, and you want to create your own magic box as to how these challenges can be overcome, then at the end, after a certain period of time, you will slowly see that you are becoming a more a person with more leadership skills, maybe people management skills, maybe more confident person. So with that few words, I would like to end my presentation here. So I will go back to the beginning of the slide presentation. And if anybody would like to add some thoughts, ideas that you would like me to consider in my future slides, or you would like the audience to know, or a particular self-development journey through which you actually evolved as a professional, as a human being, please jump in and share your thoughts. So now I open the floor for everyone, or I give it back to Edward. You can take questions from the floor. People can raise their digital hands, and then you can unmute, and then they can respond and they can speak. Thank you very much. Edward, now
Right.
back to you.
Yes. So I guess you can
Questions
close
from the
that
floor, comments from the floor.
presentation. Close the screen.
Yes.
Right. Thank you very much, Jawar Rahman. This wonderful presentation. As you have already seen that we do have a lot of challenges. First of all, the personal level. So we are encountering a lot of challenges in our life, and then also a professional challenges. Professional life, we also do have challenges. So I am very impressed. Right? There are a lot of points or areas that we should focus on, and we should spend more time and encouraging or developing resources for the young generations. So as you know that there are scope for development in those areas, that if you develop those skills, definitely it will be helpful for our personal level, also for the professional level. So each and
Exactly.
every one of those areas need like further research or further assistance, so you can call it, from the mentors or the for those who are professionals or practitioners who should actually get help. So Prerona Televisions actually will be welcoming a lot of other resources, a resource person so that our generation, young generations all over the world will learn actually different tools and techniques. And definitely we are partnering with Gia Rahman, and he's a wonderful resource. So we'll be offering this leadership series continuously, and you will be getting a lot of other resources in future from our website. So thank you very much. I do like to ask you to, if you have any feedback or any comments, you can also write in a comments box, or you can contact directly to the resource person or to us, so that we know actually what are the concerns, and so that in our next program we will be addressing those concerns. As you know that this is not the end. Every week we'll be having this series, so this will be a continuous process, and in future we will be focusing more detail, like for example we'll be focusing a particular area, like for example procrastination, like how to deal with particular things. We'll be focusing a specific thing, so that you learn some tools and techniques. So because this is a very broad area, I guess, and one of the comments actually came, right, just a very broad area. So as a as a student, or as a like a professional, or as a like employee, we are actually looking for a particular areas, like continuously. If it's the series, so we can at least learn some tools and techniques from the practitioners. So it's very important that if you can focus on that, as you know that
Ma-
this is a planned effort. So I guess this is a very continuous process. So if you have a 360-degree approach, that how we can do planning, so we'll be actually bringing those those overview, that how we can have those outlooks, and those challenges that the self-development challenges. We are actually requesting more feedback from you so that we can address those issues in near futures. So it is not only our the channel that we are focusing on that. It will be ebook, or it will be like a e-conference. There'll be a whole lot of other platform that will be focusing. Will be a professional training sessions that we are planning, and like even the corporate training sessions that, as you know, that Jiaur Rahman is a corporate trainer. I also have a background of corporate training and also doing corporate training. So if organization is interested to train their professionals, definitely we can help. And also, if an individual like requesting anything, as you know that this platform, we are requesting you to um, communicate with us through comments or through email or whatever medium that
Can,
we have.
can I
So we'll
can
be
I can I
yes,
add something
yes,
with
please.
your statement? What Edward is suggesting is that once we evolve this platform, we will be adding more um, training ideas. At the same time, we are also going to have application-oriented learning feedback process within this channel, and people will respond with corporate challenges. They will come in and they will talk about particular issues, and then we will design a particular session based on those issues. For example, he talked about procrastination. Maybe another session might be on time management. So we are going to go deeper into these particular topics. So let's say you want to have a short understanding on a particular topic and you want a certification on that, then through this channel, we are going to have that session and you will participate with us. And at the end, we will also give you that certification. And then your journey is slowly evolves over the years, over the months, and you learn a lot of new things, and we also learn from you. So it will be a cross learning platform that Edward is talking about. Thank you.
All right. So I guess what I like to share with you right now is, as you know, that Prerona Television is a multilingual channel. So this primarily this kind of training will be providing in English, uh, but we also do provide training in Bengali. Um, so I would like to end that English session right now, and I would like to speak in Bengali so that a lot of communities, Bengali-speaking communities all around the world can understand what we are planning to do. আপনাদের সবাইকে স্বাগতম প্রেরণা টেলিভিশনের পক্ষ থেকে। আমাদের প্রেরণা টেলিভিশন, আমরা অনেক আনন্দিত এবং গর্বিত যে আমাদের সাথে জিয়াউর রহমান, একজন কর্পোরেট ট্রেনার, উনি সিইও আইআইটিএম, এবং উনি একজন অ্যাডভোকেট এবং ইন্ডিপেন্ডেন্ট ইউনিভার্সিটি আর উনি ফ্যাকাল্টি, অ্যাডজাঙ্ক ফ্যাকাল্টি। তো আমরা যে লিডারশিপ সিরিজটা করতে যাচ্ছি, যে আমরা জানি যে আমাদের বর্তমানে সমাজে বা আমাদের ইয়ং জেনারেশন বা সমাজের মধ্যে অনেক চ্যালেঞ্জেস রয়েছে। তো এই চ্যালেঞ্জেস আমরা জানি যে জনসংখ্যার ভিত্তিতে আমরা বাঙালি, আমরা যেখানেই থাকি, বাংলাদেশ বলেন, ভারত বলেন, বিশ্বের যে কোনো জায়গায় বলেন, আমাদের অনেক ধরনের চ্যালেঞ্জ রয়েছে। আমরা চাই যে আমাদের এই চ্যালেঞ্জগুলো পার্সোনাল লেভেলে হোক অথবা প্রফেশনাল লেভেলে হোক, আমরা এই চ্যালেঞ্জগুলোকে অতিক্রম করব। সো আমাদের যে প্রেরণা টেলিভিশনের যে লিডারশিপ সিরিজ, এটা কন্টিনিউয়াস একটা চ্যানেল চলতে থাকবে, এবং আমরা শুধু এই লেকচার সিরিজই না, আমরা কর্পোরেট ট্রেনিং, ইন্ডিভিজুয়াল ট্রেনিং এবং আমাদের প্রফেশনাল কোচ আমাদের আসছে, এবং আমরা লাইফ কোচ বলেন, অর্গানাইজেশন কোচ বলেন, আমরা ডিফারেন্ট লেভেলে আমরা আপনাদের সাথে কাজ করতে আগ্রহী, যাতে আমাদের আমাদের ডিফারেন্ট ক্লায়েন্ট বেস, লাইক ফর এক্সাম্পল আপনাদের স্টুডেন্ট যারা রয়েছে, ইন্টারন্যাশনাল স্টুডেন্ট, তাদেরকে নিয়ে আমরা কাজ করতে যাচ্ছি, যাতে তারা যখন পড়াশোনা করছে, তাদের যে চ্যালেঞ্জেস গুলো তারা ফেস করছে, তারা কিভাবে এগুলার মোকাবেলা করতে পারে। ফর এক্সাম্পল, এটা আমরা আগেই আমাদের রিসোর্স পার্সন বলেছে, টাইম ম্যানেজমেন্ট, তারপরে আমাদের হচ্ছে প্রোক্রাস্টিনেশন, তারপরে প্রজেক্ট ম্যানেজমেন্ট। দের লট অফ থিংস লিডারশিপের সাথে সংযুক্ত, যেটা আমরা খুব ফোকাস ভেবে আমার প্র্যাকটিশনারদের কাছ থেকে এগুলো জানবো। জিয়াউর রহমান উনি অনেক বছর ধরেই একজন ইন্ডাস্ট্রিতে প্র্যাকটিস করেন, মানে ওনার নিজস্ব কোম্পানি। তো আমরা যাদেরকে আনছি তারা প্র্যাকটিশনার্স প্লাস একাডেমিক্স। সো আমিও যেমন একাডেমিক্সে 12 বছর ছিলাম, কানাডাতে এবং বাংলাদেশে পড়িয়েছি। তো আমি কানাডাতে বর্তমানে আছি। তো আমরা যেটা চাচ্ছি যে যারা প্র্যাকটিশনার্স তাদের পার্সপেক্টিভে আমাদের যারা নিউ জেনারেশন আছে, শুধু স্টুডেন্ট না, যারা প্রফেশনাল বিভিন্ন জায়গায় যারা কর্মরত রয়েছেন, তাদেরকেও আমাদের তাদের স্কিল ডেভেলপমেন্টের জন্য আমরা সহযোগিতা করতে আগ্রহী। এছাড়াও এমপ্লয়ার্স যারা রয়েছে, এমপ্লয়ার্সদের অনেক চ্যালেঞ্জেস রয়েছে। তো এমপ্লয়াররা কিভাবে তাদের এমপ্লয়ীদের ট্রেনিং করতে পারে, সেজন্য আমরা আমাদের অর্গানাইজেশন ট্রেনিং সিরিজটা আমরা করতে যাচ্ছি, যাতে তারা তাদের এমপ্লয়ীদেরকে সেভাবে তারা ট্রেনিং করতে পারে এবং তাদের যে অর্গানাইজেশনাল ইফেক্টিভনেস তাদের মধ্যে আসতে পারে। এবং আপনারা জানেন অর্গানাইজেশনাল ইফেক্টিভনেস এফিসিয়েন্সির ফলে কিন্তু যে পারফরমেন্স হয়, তাদের প্রোডাক্টিভিটি বাড়ে এবং আলটিমেটলি অর্গানাইজেশন ইজ বেনিফিটেড। এবং বর্তমানে কোভিড-19 যে আমাদের ইম্প্যাক্ট গ্লোবালি, আমরা জানি যে আমাদের একটা ইকোনমিক একটা বিগ চ্যালেঞ্জেস। তো এই ইকোনমিক বিগ চ্যালেঞ্জের মধ্যে এইটাকে আমাদের প্রত্যেকটা সময় এভরি সেকেন্ড ম্যাটার্স। এবং এখানে যে আমাদের আরেকটা কথা হচ্ছে যে আমাদের যেটা আমার কাছে সবচেয়ে সিস্টেম লস বলতে একটা জিনিস আছে, যে আমরা কোনো সিস্টেম লস যাচ্ছে না। আমরা আমাদের যে রিসোর্স আছে, আমাদের যে অ্যাভেলেবল রিসোর্স আছে, এই রিসোর্সটাকে সঠিকভাবে যদি আমরা ব্যবহার করতে পারি, তাহলে আমাদের যারা ক্লায়েন্টস বা আমাদের যারা স্টুডেন্ট রয়েছে, আমাদের যারা প্রফেশনাল রয়েছে, আমাদের যারা বিজনেস পিপল, যারা এন্টারপ্রেনার্স বা বিভিন্ন এমপ্লয়াররা রয়েছে, তাদেরকে যাতে আমরা অ্যাসিস্ট করতে পারি, যাতে গ্লোবালি আমরা যাতে জাতি দেশের এবং মানে গ্লোবালি আমরা ইকোনমিতে আমরা কন্ট্রিবিউট করতে পারি। সেজন্য আমাদের এই প্রচেষ্টা, এবং এটা কন্টিনিউয়াস একটা প্রসেস। আমরা আগেও যেটা বলেছি যে আমরা আমাদের একটা কন্টিনিউ একটা প্রসেস রাখতে যাচ্ছে। এবং এখানে একটা সবচেয়ে গুরুত্বপূর্ণ বিষয় হচ্ছে যে আমরা নিজেরাই কিছু করতে পারি না, আমাদের সাকসেসটা আমাদের কাছে না, আপনাদের কাছে। কারণ আপনাদের ফিডব্যাক, আপনাদের মতামত এবং আপনাদের চাহিদা অনুযায়ী আমরা চেষ্টা করব যাতে আমরা আপনাদের প্রয়োজনের বা আপনারা যাতে উপকৃত হন, আপনারা যাতে আরো সামনে দিয়ে আগায় যেতে পারেন, সেভাবে আমরা আপনাদেরকে সহযোগিতা করবো। সেজন্য সবচেয়ে বড় বিষয় যেটা হচ্ছে যে আপনারা আমাদের সাথে কমিউনিকেট করেন ফেসবুকে বা বিভিন্ন সোশ্যাল মিডিয়াতে, কমেন্টস এর বক্সে, অথবা ইমেল করে, অথবা ফোনের মাধ্যমে, বা আমাদের রিসোর্স পার্সন যারা আছে তাদের সাথে কন্ট্যাক্ট করে। আমাদের আমাদের এবার যদি করি, তাহলে দেন আমরা আমাদের যে গোল রয়েছে, আমাদের যে লক্ষ্য রয়েছে, সেই লক্ষ্যতে আমরা লক্ষ্য অর্জন করতে পারবো। তো আমি আর সময় বেশি নিতে যাচ্ছি না। আমাদের অলমোস্ট আমরা শুরু করেছি 8টার সময়। সো উইল বি লাইক কিপিং ইজ 1.5 hours। সো 1 hour লাইক ফর লেকচার সিরিজ, তারপর যদি কোয়েশ্চেন আনসার থাকে। সো সব সেশনে আমাদের এত সময় আমরা রাখবো না, ঘন্টা খানেকের মতো আমরা ধরেছি। তারপরেও আজকে যেহেতু সেশনটা একটু ডিফারেন্ট, আমরা প্রথম প্রথম শুরু করছি, তো এই জন্য আপনাদের কিছু ইন্ট্রোডাকশন, আপনাদের কিছু পরিচিতি বা বিষয় জানানোর জন্য আমরা একটু সময় বেশি নিচ্ছি। তো আহ, আপনাদের মতামত আমরা আহ, আমন্ত্রণ জানাচ্ছি, আপনারা মতামত জানান। জিয়াউর রহমান ভাই, আপনি কিছু বলবেন?
ধন্যবাদ। আমরা এডওয়ার্ড থেকে ওভারঅল একটা ডিরেকশন পাচ্ছি যে আমরা কি করতে চাচ্ছি, এবং আমরা মনে করি যে আসলেই বাংলাদেশের প্রচুর ছাত্র আছে যারা বিদেশে অবস্থান করছে অথবা বিদেশে যেতে চাচ্ছে। তারা অনেক ক্ষেত্রে গেটওয়ে পায় না, কোথা থেকে কিভাবে আগাবে, এবং ওই বিদেশে যাওয়ার পরে কি ধরনের চ্যালেঞ্জ হচ্ছে, সেই চ্যালেঞ্জ কিভাবে মোকাবিলা করবে, সেটা তাদের জন্য অনেক ক্ষেত্রে খুব কঠিন হয়ে যায়। তো এই আমাদের এই উদ্যোগ আস্তে আস্তে আমরা আরো কিছু রোল আউট করব, আরো ইভেন্ট ইন্ট্রোডিউস করা হবে। সেই ইভেন্টের মাধ্যমে সেগুলোর সাথে সম্পৃক্ত হলে ক্লাস্টার করে যার যেই এরিয়াতে বেশি দরকার সে ওই আমাদের ইভেন্টগুলো থেকে সে পিক করে সেই দিনে বা সেই সময়টা সে আমাদের ইভেন্টগুলো দেখলো এবং জানলো। তো এটা একটা ভালো দিক হতে পারে। আর এখানে আমরা যেটা ভবিষ্যতে করব যে এটা তো কন্টিনিউয়াস সিরিজ, এখানে আমরা এখন লিডারশিপের একটা কম্পোনেন্ট নিয়ে কাজ করছি। আগামীতে আরো এরিয়াকে সম্পৃক্ত করব, আরো রিসোর্স পার্সনকে আমরা নিয়ে আসব, এবং আমরা ওপেন ডিসকাশন ফ্লোরস করেও আমরা কিছু কিছু করব, সেটা এডিশনাল সেশনস হিসেবে আমরা করব। তো মোটামুটি আমি লিডারশিপ রিলেটেড যেই চ্যালেঞ্জগুলো পার্সোনাল ডেলিভারি নিয়ে আজকে কথা বললাম, সেগুলো প্রত্যেক মানুষের জীবনেরই একটা পার্ট। তো আমরা মনে করব আমি আপনি প্রতিদিন যদি এগুলো নিয়ে একটু ভাবি এবং নিজেকে সংশোধন করি বা আরো ইমপ্রুভ করি, তাহলে আমি ইমপ্রুভ করব। আমি ইমপ্রুভ করলে আমার পরিবেশ ইমপ্রুভ হবে, আমার সমাজ ইমপ্রুভ হবে, আমার যে এডওয়ার্ড যে বললো যে এফিসিয়েন্সি এন্ড প্রোডাক্টিভিটি বাড়বে। এফিসিয়েন্সি প্রোডাক্টিভিটি বাড়া মানেই কিন্তু সার্বিকভাবে আমরা সবাই উপকৃত হচ্ছি। তো এইটুকুই আমি আজকে বলতে চাই। আমাদের সময়ের স্বল্পতা আছে। আগামী আগামী উইকের একই দিন আপনাদের সাথে আবার দেখা হবে। আমরা লিডারশিপের আরেকটা অ্যাঙ্গেল নিয়ে আপনাদের সাথে আসব, এবং এটা আমরা ডিজিটালি মার্কেটিং করব ফেসবুকের মাধ্যমে। এবং আপনারা অবশ্যই পাবেন, এবং আপনারা যদি অন্য মানুষদেরকে আমাদের সম্পর্কে বলেন, যদি কেউ আগ্রহ থাকে, তাহলে টিউন ইন করতে পারেন। তো সবাইকে শুভেচ্ছা, ভালো থাকবেন, এবং সেফ ডিস্টেন্সিং মেনটেন করে চলবেন। আসসালামু আলাইকুম। ব্যাক টু এডওয়ার্ড।
আমি শেষ করতে চাই, আমাদের কাছে একটা কমেন্টস প্রশ্ন আসছে যে আপনারা কি কোনো ই সার্টিফিকেট দিবেন কিনা। আমরা অলরেডি ইউনিভার্সিটির সাথে একটা কোলাবোরেশন করেছি একটা। সো আমরা নিয়ার ফিউচারে এটা যদি সম্পূর্ণ হয় আমাদের কনফার্মেশন, তাহলে আমরা বিশ্ববিদ্যালয়ের সাথে যোগাযোগ করে আমরা ই সার্টিফিকেট বা আমাদের যে অর্গানাইজেশনের ম্যানেজমেন্ট অর্গানাইজেশন আমাদের আছে ট্রেনিং ইনস্টিটিউট, সেই ট্রেনিং ইনস্টিটিউটের মাধ্যমে আপনাদেরকে জয়েন্ট একটা সার্টিফিকেশন করার আমরা চিন্তা ভাবনা করছি। স্টিল ইন দ্য প্ল্যানিং স্টেজ। সো এটা আমরা কনফার্ম করছি না এখনো, বাট উই আর প্ল্যানিং অন দ্যাট। যারা আসলে সার্টিফিকেশন করতে আগ্রহী, ডিফারেন্ট সার্টিফিকেশন, বাট আমরা চাচ্ছি এটা ক্রেডিবল বা একটা বিশ্ববিদ্যালয়ের সাথে আমাদের কোলাবোরেশন থাকে, এবং যাতে আপনারা যারা এই ট্রেনিং গুলো করেন তারা একটা ডেফিনেট একটা কোয়ালিটি কারিকুলাম বা অ্যাপ্রোচের মাধ্যমে করেন, এবং ডেফিনেটলি আপনাদের প্রফেশনাল লাইফে কেরিয়ারে যাতে হেল্প হয়। সো উই আর প্ল্যানিং অন দ্যাট। থ্যাংক ইউ ভেরি মাচ আপনারা যারা আসছেন আমাদের সাথে আজকে, অনেকে যারা আমাদের লাইভে দেখছেন, আমাদের লাইভ শেয়ার করছেন এবং ফিডব্যাক দিচ্ছেন, আপনাদেরকে আমরা কৃতজ্ঞতা জানাই। আমাদের এটা শুধু আমাদের আমাদের টেলিভিশনের জন্য না বা আমাদের রিসোর্স পার্সন তাদের জন্য না, আমি জানি জাতির জন্য বা আমাদের কমিউনিটির জন্য, আমাদের দেশের জন্য, আমাদের সবার জন্য এটা একটা জরুরি দরকার। সুতরাং আমাদের সেই ভালোবাসা থেকেই আসলে এই প্রচেষ্টা। সুতরাং আমরা চাই যে আপনারা আপনাদের পক্ষ থেকে যতটুকু সম্ভব আমরা সেটা সহযোগিতা করবেন। সকলকে ধন্যবাদ।
সবাইকে ধন্যবাদ। আসসালামু আলাইকুম।
Yeah.